Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's time for the Legal Lounge here on CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com, streaming live coast to coast and around the world on CRNTalk.com, Facebook.com as well, Facebook.com/CRNTalk. I'm joined by Mr. Richard Nixon, a practicing attorney, noted author of America, An Illusion of Freedom, constitutional scholar, all-around good guy. How you doing today, Richard?
It's never better, Mike. Thank you.
Oh, it's beautiful outside today. We're going to have a good time talking all things legal, all things constitutional. A lot of stuff on the agenda. We're going to talk about illegal immigration. We're going to talk about also millionaires and how much is their fair share, or are they paying too much in taxes vis-a-vis their taxes as well as illegal immigration. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this fascinating story out of Washington, D.C. We all followed the Covington High School, the brouhaha that happened on the National Mall a couple months ago. Now a young man is being represented by a fabulous attorney, Lynn Wood, and he is looking for a big, big payday. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this Timms versus Indiana, interesting case regarding civil forfeiture and the Eighth Amendment, and some other stuff. So thank you so much for joining us here. But first off, Richard, I was perusing the news the other day, and a constitutional expert and someone who's quite popular on the in the blogosphere, you'll say, Tim Giovanetti. He must have read your book, Richard.
Giovanetti.
Yeah,
See, Mike, you're not Italian. That's why you can't say that. But anyway, yes, I think he has read my book, although he didn't give me any credit for it. He basically says what I say in Chapter 1 of my book, which basically is that this idea of the superior judiciary in this country is absolutely unconstitutional. It was never intended by the Founding Fathers or the drafters of the Constitution that of the three branches, one would be superior to the other two, and the branch that was supposed to be superior would be the only one that was not elected by the people. That falls short on so many bases. It's unbelievable. Yet that's what we've been living under, that false presumption since 1803 in the Marbury versus Madison case.
And that was the case. We've talked about that before, but
yes,
for any new listeners, that was the case that really codified the Supreme Court's ability to almost write law.
Absolutely. And again, it's counter to Article 3, Section 2, Paragraph 2, which basically says Congress has the authority to grant jurisdiction or withhold jurisdiction to the Supreme Court based on any facts or issues that it so chooses. And so it's up to Congress to limit, if it so chooses, the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and one of the overarching themes of this show, and also your fantastic book, Richard, America, An Illusion of Freedom, is I don't think that the Supreme Court, of course, you know, they want to usurp their powers. Anybody who has power wants to expand those powers, but also it gives Congress an out. It gives Congress a way to not legislate, to protect their jobs, protect their constituencies by not taking on divisive issues and leaving it up to the Supreme Court.
Yes, and of course, consistent with Mr. Giovanetti's thesis is the fact that during the travel ban request by the President Trump, one federal judge, a judge from Hawaii, issued an injunction that prevented his going forth with that law, that travel ban, and it spread out to the whole country. It was not limited to the people before the court, which itself is a violation of due process.
All right, we're going to talk more about that after the break. Thank you so much for joining us here in the Legal Lounge. Richard Nixon live here on CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com.
Do you owe back taxes to the IRS? News flash, the president has changed the tax laws, and now you may be able to pay the IRS less. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, the tax doctor can help you pay the IRS as little as possible allowed by law. There are new tax laws for business owners, the self-employed, even W-2 workers. If you have a back tax problem or a few years of unfilled returns, new help to save you money is now here. Call right now to see how the new tax laws can help you. Plus, right now, we'll waive the consultation fee and give you a free tax savings report. Attention business owners, the self-employed, and W-2 workers. Make this free call to the tax doctor now and learn how to take advantage of the new tax laws that may help you pay the IRS less. 800-985-1610. 800-985-1610. 800-985-1610. That's 800-985-1610.
And we are back. Richard Nixon live here on CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com. Shoot us an email, richardnixon@CRNTalk.com, broadcasting live coast to coast and around the world. And so, Richard, we wanted to talk today a little bit about economic inequality. And we're not talking about the kind of economic inequality that our friend, our gal over there in the Bronx, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is talking about. We're talking about economic inequality vis-a-vis taxes. This stat that you pointed out to me is absolutely unbelievable, that 50% of all the state taxes, 50% of all the state taxes collected here in the great state of California is only paid by 1% of the taxpayers.
Yes, I find that staggering. And, of course, it's not something the socialists want to hear, because if we're going to argue fairness, it seems fair, or I should say unfair, that 1% should pay 50% of the taxes. And it becomes interesting, because I know that the governor of New York is concerned with that if he continues to raise a lot of money from that one small percentage of people, they might just leave.
Yeah.
Now, in fact, in New York, they do leave. They go south. They go to Florida. The problem with California is you can probably raise the taxes, and people like Barbara Streisand and so on probably never leave because of the weather. So we have similar problems, but I think the solution in California is more difficult.
Well, not only is it a matter of fairness, you could argue that, of course, but there's a practical implication too, Richard, like you brought up. I mean, people with higher incomes pay a lot more money, and they're tempted to leave.
Absolutely.
They're tempted to leave California, and you're not only seeing individuals do this, but you're seeing entire industries. For example, the film industry is starting to shoot all over the country. It's shooting especially in Canada because of different wages and different tax burdens.
Absolutely, but see, it takes a little thought to consider that, and people like Ms. Cortez will simply say the tax cuts were fine, except they were to the wrong people, to the wealthy, failing to account for the fact that because the wealthy pay most of the taxes, I think it's, again, comports with fairness that the wealthy should get the lion's share of the tax cuts too.
Well, Richard, some of my brothers and sisters on the left say, hey, well, what happened when President Trump, in his most recent tax bill, he outlawed the deduction that you were able to deduct the state taxes from your federal income taxes.
Yes.
But, I mean, this has still been going on. I mean, this is still a significant issue. We see it in sports. We see it plenty of times that athletes are hesitant to come sign in California or sign in New York City because they make a $300 million contract. They end up paying oodles of money in taxes.
Yes. I'm not sure to what extent President Trump and his people were simply clever in fashioning that kind of thing. Frankly, I'm glad he did it, because basically the high state tax states are New York, California, Connecticut, and so on. And what he basically did is said, from now on, there's no deduction for your state tax.
Yeah.
Now, in my mind, there should never have been a deduction in the first place. The problem with too high taxes in the states is the state's problem. It's not the federal government's problem. So I have no sympathy at all for the fact that people here in California that pay a lot of property taxes because our taxes are too high in California, the fact that they complain to Trump that he should fix that, I think it should fall on deaf ears.
Well, one of the things that makes the tax rate in California and other border states very, very high is because of an immense amount of spending on illegal immigration.
Don't get me started on that.
Well, just some quick figures here that the staggering total cost of legal immigration and their children outweigh the taxes paid to the federal and state governments by those legal immigrants and children by roughly a 7-to-1 margin, with the costs of nearly $135 billion. That's costs associated with health care, with education, with law enforcement, compared to the revenues generated from these people of $19 billion. So, Richard, some of these stacks are actually are staggering. On the federal level, Medi-Cal paid $17.14 billion to illegal immigrants. The law enforcement, $13.15 billion to police illegal immigration, and the state and local education. This is the big one, $44.4 billion. And
yes,
as someone who has a lot of teachers in my family, some that were just on strike for the LAUSD, it wasn't about salary, Richard. It was about class size.
Yes.
Because the less money that the state has, they got to put more kids in the classroom. What do we do about this?
Well, again, going nationwide as opposed to California, there are studies by the Center for Immigration Studies and the Department of Homeland Security that say up through yesterday, I believe, the cost of illegals here in this country exceeded $50 billion. Now, in my mind, that's going to go way over $200 billion for the year if it's already $50 billion now. And it seems to me it's a cheap investment to put a wall up to curtail maybe 70 or 80% of that. I think it's a bargain if we can get the wall up for. Trump is now asking for another 8-point-something billion. I say give it to him.
Well, not only is there economic impact on the supply side, but on the demand side as well. When you have cheap labor, that pushes wages down, and therefore people in the lower rung of employment
absolutely
have their wages pushed down as well.
And that's exactly why the Republicans like the illegal immigrants. Now, we've said before that the Democrats like the illegal immigrants because they expect them to be voting Democrat, and that's true because they'll give them freebies. But both political parties have a vested interest in continued free flow of illegals into this country, and one of the reasons why both parties dislike or hate is a strong word President Trump is because he's messing up, if you will, their status quo.
That's an interesting point, Richard, because there's the never Trump kind of block of conservatives, and they're kind of mostly aligned with more of the country club style conservatives.
Absolutely.
Because these people have vested interests in having cheap labor.
Yes, and we've said if these kids coming over were going to be competing with these wealthy Republican kids in school, that would be one thing. But they're competing with the kids of their gardeners, and that's why they don't care if these people keep coming in.
Yeah. It's a very fascinating issue, and the only thing that can really solve this issue is direct action from Congress. This isn't a Supreme Court issue.
And again, Congress is so delinquent on so many issues. We blamed Trump for not doing it in the first 2 years when he had both a House and a Senate in Republican hands. But the Republicans themselves are not united in what to do. They have, as we said, they have a vested interest in not doing exactly what Trump wants done.
It's fascinating. It's almost a paradox where you have these very wealthy people who are going to pay more in state taxes because of illegal immigration, but yet they want illegal immigration because it's cheap labor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're going to talk more about this in the coming weeks, you guys, but stick around and join us here on the Legal Lounge with Richard Nixon, streaming live on CRN Digital Talk Radio, crntalk.com. Also available on Facebook, facebook.com/CRN Talk, and all previous episodes are available on YouTube as well. Just search YouTube for Richard Nixon Live. Also check out his website, www.pres37th.wix.com. It's right on the screen right now if you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook. Go there and order Richard's fantastic book, America, An Illusion of Freedom. Stick around, you guys. We'll be right back right after the break here in the Legal Lounge on CRN Digital Talk Radio, crntalk.com.
Experiencing pain, back pain, shoulder, elbow, or hand pain, pain from a sports injury? If so, schedule a visit with Dr. Michael Sheps, the leading expert in laser therapy for pain management. Call 310-873-4422 or go to drsheps.com. Experience Epic T, the breakthrough laser therapy system that Dr. Sheps developed to make you pain-free in less time. Laser therapy is a non-invasive, safe, and effective in-office procedure that penetrates deep into your skin without damaging the tissue. It perfectly targets areas of pain to promote fast, natural healing. Relax your muscles, ease muscle spasms, joint stiffness, and arthritis pain while increasing blood circulation. For over 25 years, Dr. Sheps has helped Olympic athletes and sports enthusiasts alike get back in the game. Schedule your visit with Dr. Sheps at his Brentwood office in California. Call 310-873-4422 or visit drsheps.com. That's DRSHEPS.com, 310-873-4422.
Were you scammed into signing a timeshare contract? And did you miss the part that said you have to pay for your great idea? Not only for the rest of your life, but when you're not here anymore, you get to pass this turkey onto your family for them to pay for the rest of their lives. Thanks, Dad. Don't burden your family down the road, and don't be stuck with expensive timeshare payments forever. Get out of your bad idea timeshare contract guaranteed, or pay nothing. Call Resort Release today and learn for free how their timeshare Our Exit team can help you legally exit your timeshare contract. They've helped thousands of people, and they're A+ rated with a BBB. So if you feel scammed, get mad and get out of your expensive timeshare contract right now, guaranteed. Call NOW.
800-716-9903. 800-716-9903. 800-716-9903. That's 800-716-9903.
Hi, everyone. This is Fred Dreyer telling you about my favorite Italian restaurant. It's Angelo's and Vinci's in Fullerton, California. Angelo's and Vinci's has the best pasta, the best seafood, the best salads, spaghetti, lasagna, and the most incredible pizza. And the chicken is delicious. Marsala, piccata, cacciatore, parmigiana, and more. For desserts, try our spumoni or our tiramisu, my favorite, flown in fresh from Italy. And the cannolis and the zeppolis are out of this world. Open for lunch and dinner. And don't miss the Sunday champagne brunch, just $23.95. Are you kidding me? It's all up the road from Disneyland at 550 North Harbor Boulevard in Fullerton, California. Angelo's and Vinci's, like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. Call 714-879-4022 or visit us online at angeloandvincis.com.
And we are back. Richard Nixon live here in the Legal Lounge, CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com, talking all things legal, all things constitutional. And Richard, you pointed this case out to me, and it blew my mind. This is Madison versus Alabama. A brief background: Vernon Madison, he shot a police officer, Julius Schroot, twice in the back of the head in Mobile, Alabama, in April of 1985. This police officer, his young officer, was mediating a domestic dispute between Madison and his ex-girlfriend, who Madison shot and wounded as well. 3 trials were held, and 2 convictions were overturned on procedural grounds. And the third one, he was convicted and subsequently sentenced to death. But, Richard, you take it from here. What happens after this?
Well, the Supreme Court 5-4, and I'm surprised that Chief Justice Roberts went along with the liberal wing, if you will, basically saying, well, there was a problem here with, first of all, they applied the 8th Amendment, and that's, of course, one of the problems we've mentioned on this show before is the incorporation doctrine. In my estimation, they should not have. This is a state case, Madison versus Alabama. And so the point is the 8th Amendment should not have even applied. But in any event, the 8th Amendment prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. And what the court basically said by relying on 2 previous cases is that executing this person when he didn't really understand why they were going to execute him, he didn't quite connect. He had had several strokes. He apparently did remember of the incident, but he didn't see the connection between that incident and why the state wanted to execute him. And for that, the court remanded it back to get more information as to his state of mind.
And those past precedent cases regarding 8th Amendment and that understanding the meaning and purpose of his death sentence has come from Ford versus Wainwright and Panetti versus Quarterman. But he did remember the crime that he committed at the time of his sentencing.
Yes.
Subsequently, though, he had a series of strokes, which has rendered him with some dementia and memory loss, and he can't remember the case at the time.
Right. And, of course, the way the court is looking at it is this. There has to be some kind of retribution. In other words, the person that's about to be executed must be aware of why he's being executed so that the execution has that reputative aspect to it. But there are those who argue that there are other reasons for an execution, even if he doesn't remember or understand, and that is the fact that the remaining victims have a right to have the law enforced as it is. And there's some satisfaction, if you will, in knowing that the person who killed your son is now going to be executed according to the law.
It's almost like it's a tripartite situation. There's three legs of the stool in terms of capital punishment. There's the deterrent
Yes.
in capital punishment. There's the closure for the victim,
Yes.
and then punishment for the offender.
Right.
And by removing one of the legs here,
Yes.
punishment from the defender, you're leaving those two other legs unopposed. It seems dramatically unfair to the victim's family and to society at large.
I think it is, and quite frankly, I was not aware of the fact that such law existed until now. But again, if we back up and we refuse to permit the Supreme Court to apply the Eighth Amendment to a state execution, the matter could be resolved by whatever the state law and the people of that state determine are the proper circumstances under which a person like Mr. Madison should be executed.
Justice Kagan, she wrote the majority decision, which, like you said, was also joined by Swingin' John Roberts, and that it wasn't about memory. The memory loss does not bar his execution. Moral values do not exempt the simple forgetful from punishment, she wrote. But she said that the relevant question was whether he could understand what he's accused of and how Alabama plans to punish him. But this is after the fact, though.
Yes, and you can see that everybody and his brother using this as a ploy each time to delay their execution. It's going to be used or abused by everyone now.
I mean, not only executions, but any punishment levied by the justice system. I robbed this bank, but I forgot, so hey, let me out. I want to talk right after the break, Richard,
Yes.
about Justice Alito. He had not nice things to say about this decision. I want to talk about that right after the break. But stick around, you guys. We're going to talk more about this case and others right after the break here on CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com. Drop us a line on Facebook, Facebook.com/CRN Talk, or shoot Richard an email, RichardNixon@CRNTalk.com. Be right back right after the break here in the Legal Lounge with Richard Nixon here on CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com.
Hi, everybody. Michael Horn from CRNTalk.com. You know, we provide you with the best in talk radio. 8 channels of talk radio, from radio on the left, radio on the right, sports talk, business talk, religious talk, Spanish talk, you name it, we've got talk radio for you. All at CRNTalk.com. Well, now we'll bring you video as well as audio. That's right. Watch your favorite shows like The Robert Conrad Show, The Fred Dreyer Program, What's Cooking Today, What's Cooking on Wine, The Lounge, and so many other shows in video right at our website, CRNTalk.com. You can also watch us on Roku. Just search CRN Talk, and you can watch us on Roku on any TV anywhere in the world. Also on Facebook Live. Go to Facebook.com/CRN Digital Talk. Facebook.com/CRN Digital Talk. Roku, search CRN Talk. Check us out on Tiki Live and at CRNTalk.com. Video for you talk fans, all from CRN Talk. CRN listeners, take CRN with you on the road, on your smartphone. Yes, now you can enjoy CRN right on the convenience of your smartphone. Just dial this phone number, pound 250, that's pound 250. Don't text it, it's a phone call. Pound 250 and hit send. When they ask you for the keyword, say CRN Talk, and our app will be loaded automatically to your phone free of charge. Dial pound 250 and hit send, and then say CRN Talk, and get CRN on your smartphone today.
We are the debt destroyer. Any debt you have, credit card, tax, student loan debt. Call now to get our free report that tells you how to destroy your debt. It's a great resource. Plus, when you make this free call right now, we'll have a debt destroyer expert ready to help you. They can show you how they can help you destroy your debt and get your life back on track. Debt problems don't have to be overwhelming. You can live stress-free and debt-free. Credit cards, medical bills, IRS tax problems, even student loan debt. Learn about free programs offered by the credit card companies, hospitals, and even the government that can help you slash your debt. Call right now for free information, including our Debt Destroyer Guide, a $300 value, yours free. Call right now.
800-515-6348. 800-515-6348. That's 800-515-6348.
Destination South Point. 11 great restaurants, bingo, bowling, movies, race books, sports books, spa, live entertainment, oversized rooms, and the rates unbeatable. The South Point Las Vegas. Book now. Online at southpointcasino.com or call 866-791-7626. southpointcasino.com or call 866-791-7626. At the South Point Las Vegas, you're always a winner.
When you really want Italian food, you have got to get to Columbo's. Columbo's Italian Steakhouse and Jazz Club. Colorado Boulevard, Eagle Rock. It's that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. It's word of the green time. Now, we might not know how many quarts make a gallon, but that's not the case when it comes to pints. Here's to you, and here's to me. May we never disagree, and if we do, the heck with you, and here's to me. There's no better place to celebrate St. Paddy's than at Columbo's. After all, it was Aldo Colombo who discovered Ireland years ago on his way to Eagle Rock. Jazz every night, great Italian specialties, the world's greatest meatballs that'll have you singing Tura, Nura, Nura, the freshest fish and yummy steaks, great service and also affordable. Happy St. Paddy's at Good Times Central, Columbo's, because it really is that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Columbo's, Faith and Bigora.
We are back. Richard Nixon live here in the Legal Lounge, CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com, broadcasting coast to coast and around the world, talking about this interesting case, kind of a perplexing case right here, morally, Madison versus Alabama, and with the Supreme Court holding that the Eighth Amendment applied to the states.
Yes.
May permit executing a prisoner even if he or she cannot remember committing his or her crime, but it may prohibit executing a prisoner who suffers from dementia or another disorder. Kind of an oxymoron right there. And Justice Samuel Alito, he wrote a pretty blistering dissent, Richard. Can you give us a summary of that?
Well, yes. He basically said that the petitioner raised one question, and that question was whether the Eighth Amendment prohibits the execution of a murderer who cannot recall committing the murder. The answer to that is he can still be executed. And, of course, his attorney knew that the answer to that question, so somewhere in midstream they changed the issue to whether or not he could now not understand why he was being executed. And the court actually considered it, and the majority went with that when Alito's saying that basically the majority rewards counsel's trick. It vacates the judgment below because it's not sure whether the state court committed the error claimed in petitioner's merits brief or not. In other words, it's a situation where the court is actually considering an issue that the petitioner never brought.
And that's an instance of the court choosing what to argue, therefore de facto making law themselves.
Absolutely. And again, to make matters worse, you've got the Chief Justice going along with the idea.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess if there's anything to be salvaged, it's that they simply remanded it back to the lower court. The lower court will ferret it out, and maybe it'll end up being corrected by the Supreme Court eventually.
Yeah, and I would hope that the Alabama, that the community itself will be the one to adjudicate this matter in the Alabama court system rather than federally. And interesting, we're going to be following that too. This is a quick question we got from Facebook. This is from Val, our friend Val. Richard, I was wondering if Richard had a chance to answer this question. I was wondering how he became so knowledgeable on our Constitution. Was he a professor at a college and taught a class about it, or about our history of the Constitution, or did he learn it for what he knows from being a lawyer? Good question, Val.
Valerie, first of all, thank you very much for your recognition of my knowledge regarding the Constitution. Now, I have to qualify that, though. I consider myself somewhat of an expert on certain portions of the Constitution. By the way, I learned it, if you will, As a lawyer, I had to research a case. It forced me to go into the Constitution to research the case for a client, and it was that research that led me to conclude that the Supreme Court doesn't always follow the Constitution. The Constitution might say A, and the Supreme Court might say not A. And that's what got me to write the book. I felt an obligation, given my knowledge then of the subject, to let the people know that they should be checking on their government. Their government is not always doing what the Constitution demands they do.
Yeah, absolutely. That book is absolutely fantastic, guys. America, An Illusion of Freedom. All of that knowledge packed into that book. Available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, as well as on iTunes. You can get it right off his website. If you're watching on Facebook, that link is right at the top of the screen. And so now we want to move on and talk about this interesting case, this potential tort that's going to be taking place. We all remember the brouhaha that happened on the National Mall involving some teenagers from Covington High School. And the initial reports were that these quote-unquote MAGA teens, unquote, and used as a pejorative by the media, were harassing this Native American man on the National Mall. Well, it turns out that those facts were completely untrue, that it wasn't some sort of harassment, that is actually a third party was screaming at these kids, and the video was highly edited and whatnot. And some of these teens, these are minors that were part of this Covington High School group, were identified on social media and by the media at large. And now one of these particular teens is being represented by a fantastic attorney, Lynn Wood, who also he represented Richard Jewell, the accused Olympic bomber, back in 1996, and won a big judgment for defamation regarding him. He's going to sue the Washington Post and as well as CNN for defaming his client for a combined verdict. He's seeking for over $500 million. Richard, your thoughts on this?
Well, I wish him all the luck in the world because, as we've said before, Mike, I believe that and so does Attorney Wood, believe that the First Amendment was, I'll use the word bastardized, by the New York Times versus Sullivan case that basically gave the media carte blanche to say whatever they wanted to say about anyone. They limited it to public officials and public figures, but they can essentially say anything they want, even if it's false. And unless you can prove that they knew or should have known that it was false, they, if you will, can get away with making these false statements. And it's encouraged this exact same kind of conduct that the Washington Post and CNN effected against this Nick Sandeman, this young boy of 16. It encouraged them to make these false statements, and now I hope Mr. Wood is successful in making them pay.
And the New York Times versus Sullivan, one of the main ideas of that case was that public figures are above higher scrutiny than private citizens. And not only was this young man a private citizen, but a minor.
Exactly. Well, and see, that might that would bode well for the citizen, obviously, because he doesn't have to prove. He doesn't have that high standard. All he has to do is prove that what they said was false. And again, that's what's so surprising, that the Washington Post, they must have not gotten very good legal advice, because they should have known better than to do this. Well,
I want to talk about the damages that Mr. Wood is seeking. It's a staggering dollar amount, but of course these CNN and Washington Post are large corporations owned by even larger corporations. They have the money to do it. Maybe it behooves them to pay. But I want to talk about that, about compulsory damages versus punitive damages, right after the break, because that's going to be pertinent regarding this case. Stick around, you guys. We're in the Legal Lounge with Richard Nixon here on Sear and Digital Talk Radio. Thank you for everybody watching on Facebook, Valerie in Orlando. We appreciate it. Also, all of our listeners around the world listening on cable and on the internet at searandtalk.com. Stick around. Richard Nixon live in the Legal Lounge here on Sear and Digital Talk Radio, searandtalk.com.
If Ernest Hemingway was alive today, would he say this to you?
Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Edgar Allan Poe, all great writers.
And after reading your book, I simply must add you to the list.
Wait, you don't have a book yet, so make a free call to Page Publishing. Their expert staff can help you turn your book idea into a real book, a masterpiece that could someday make the bestseller list in hard copy and digitally all across the world. Page Publishing can help you completely take your idea for a book, write it, and publish it. So if you want to join the ranks of some of the most famous authors in the world, call now for a free information kit. Turn your book idea into publishing gold. Make a free call right now to Page Publishing.
800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. That's 800-378-3212.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies in a capsule.
I believe that your company has the answer because I've been through cancer treatment and knowing what it does to the body, and oh my, if that's all that medical science has to offer, there must be a better way, and I think the better way is knowing what to eat and getting it. I do notice that I have less inflammation. I feel like when I'm taking Balance of Nature, I'm getting fruits and vegetables more than what I would ordinarily get. I like when I open up the bottles, you can really smell the fruits and vegetables. I mean, I know I'm getting fruits and vegetables.
When you call, use discount code FLASH, and we'll take 20% off any first preferred order of Balance of Nature and have it shipped to you free. Call 1-800-246-8751. That's 1-800-246-8751. Or go online to balanceofnature.com and use discount code FLASH.
And we are back. Richard Nixon live here in the Legal Lounge, Siren Digital Talk Radio, SirenTalk.com, Facebook.com/SirenTalk, talking about this case, this Covington teenager, Nick Sandman, who was defamed in public by multiple news outlets, and how his attorney, Lynn Wood, is seeking $250 million in damages from both CNN and the Washington Post. And Richard, let me ask you this. As a layman over here, $250 million, are we talking about punitive damages here, or are we talking about compulsory damages, and what's the difference thereof, and is this capped in any way?
Well, I think $50 million of that is compensatory. The other $200 is punitive. And as far as the question goes, as far as capping, yes, the Supreme Court, about 10 years ago, said that it's unfair to not have a limit on punitive damages because in many states like California, you could not put the amount of punitive damages. You could say a plaintiff is suing defendant for $5 million plus punitive damages to be determined at trial. Now, the reason for that is because they didn't want this kind of financial assassination against doctors and other people by saying, wow, that doctor's being sued for $500 million. He must have really done something wrong. So you couldn't mention the amount of punitive damages. Well, if that's the case, and a person is sued for, let's say, a reasonable amount, and that person decides it's not worth his time to appear, and he lets the case go by default, then he could very well end up with some unknown amount of punitive damages. So in order to prevent that occurrence, the Supreme Court said we're going to put a cap on it. You cannot ask for punitive damages, or I should say you cannot be awarded punitive damages more than 9 times your compensatory damages. So in this case, it's pretty hard to say. Again, what the attorneys usually do is simply say to the jury, what is his life worth now that he's been damaged? In other words, everybody thinks now that he offended this Native American person playing the drums, and he was wearing a belligerent hat, Make America Great Again. Is he ever going to be able to get his name back by at least half the country? Half the country thinks he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
So for that, how much would you give? We think you have to give $250 million. And besides that, Mike, the amount of punitive damages is literally intended to punish.
Yes.
And that is a function of the wealth of the defendant, no question about it. A very rich guy, assessing him $5,000 in damages may be pocket change. And in fact, Mr. Attorney Wood used that same expression. This may not even be enough, because these guys have a lot of money, and maybe $250 million wouldn't even punish them.
Yeah, it's, well, because they defamed this youngster, and in the age of mass communications and social media, those images of him and his name will be out in the culture forever, indefinitely.
Absolutely.
And so I could see that punitive damages, compulsory damages, could be high on that fact alone, but the punitive damages as well, because we talked about this before off air, is that these corporations, these media organizations, have a tremendous amount of power to shape the narrative of the culture at large. And for them to run with false information, defaming a minor, there needs to be punitive damages to teach other companies a lesson.
I think you're absolutely right, Mike.
But this speaks to something that's also interesting, a recent case that we've discussed too, Tibbs versus Indiana. And this is a criminal case. This is regarding asset forfeiture, and that the United States Supreme Court has ruled that excessive fines, they violate the Eighth Amendment's clause against excessive fines, and this is regarding asset forfeiture. So if there's a cap on asset forfeiture based on this case, Tibbs versus Indiana, should there be a cap as well on judgments in the civil arena?
Well, as I said, there is a cap on civil judgments, at least when you compare compensatory to punitive. There is a relationship between the two. As we said, a factor of 9 cannot be exceeded, compensatory versus punitive. However, when it comes to the Eighth Amendment, again, it's a judgment call. In this particular case, we don't know what would have happened had Indiana been permitted to confiscate that car, which turned out to be, apparently it had a value in excess of $40,000, and the maximum fine against the defendant was 10. So whether or not that car would have been taken, sold, the government would have taken its 10 and given him his, if you will, the 30,000 back or not, I'm not sure. But I think the court was too quick to overrule the acts of, which is exactly what we do whenever we allow the Supreme Court to incorporate a doctrine like they've done here in the Eighth Amendment. They literally strip away the state's rights and the state's powers.
Once again, community standards are thrown out the window and based on an authoritative federal system.
Absolutely.
All right, very interesting. We're going to be monitoring both these cases. Interesting cases indeed, regarding the Covington teen Nick Salmon and his defamation lawsuit seeking a whopping $500 million, and also this asset forfeiture ban. Asset forfeiture amount, since the Supreme Court saying that it violates the Eighth Amendment under excessive fines. So we're going to talk about that in the coming weeks. You guys stick around, and we're going to be back, wrap things up here with Richard Nixon here on the CRN Digital Talk Radio. We're in the Legal Lounge. Richard Nixon live here. Shoot us an email, richardnixon@crntalking.com, or drop us a note on Facebook. Follow Richard on Facebook and Twitter as well, and check out his book, America, An Illusion of Freedom, available on iTunes, Barnes & Noble, and as well on Amazon.com. Stick around, you guys. Richard Nixon live here in the Legal Lounge on CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com.
Hi, everyone. This is Fred Dreyer telling you about my favorite Italian restaurant. It's Angelo's and Vinci's in Fullerton, California. Angelo's and Vinci's has the best pasta, the best seafood, the best salad, spaghetti, lasagna, and the most incredible pizza. And the chicken is delicious. Marsala, piccata, cacciatore, parmigiana, and more. For desserts, try our spumoni or our tiramisu, my favorite, flown in fresh from Italy. And the cannolis and the zeppolis are out of this world. Open for lunch and dinner, and don't miss the Sunday champagne brunch, just $23.95. Are you kidding me? It's all up the road from Disneyland at 550 North Harbor Boulevard in Fullerton, California. Angelo's and Vinci's, like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. Call 714-879-4022 or visit us online at angeloandvincis.com.
Imagine this is your money and someone wants to take it from you. Who is it? The IRS. They want your money, and guess what? They can legally take it, all of it if they want. Remember, they sent you that letter that said, hey, you owe us a bunch of cash and we're going to take it from you. So what do? Fight back by letting our team of experts at the tax helpline work it out with the IRS so you can keep your money. And we're good at what we do. When you hire us, you get a team of guys on your side that know the IRS laws and will fight to save your money. So if you owe the IRS a ton of cash and you want to keep it, call right now and learn for free how we can help you put it back in your pocket.
800-932-1597. 800-932-1597. 800-932-1597. That's 800-932-1597.
For the getaway of your dreams, come to Hawaii's Playground, Ka'anapali Beach Resort, on the fun side of Maui, where the world comes to play. Find your spot on Ka'anapali Beach with 3 miles of white sand, 12 resort properties, 2 golf courses, and 2 shopping centers. Enjoy the playground of Hawaii's ancient royalty. Ka'anapali Beach Resort is Hawaii's original master plan destination resort and home of the Hawaii Food and Wine Festival. With views of 2 neighboring islands, you can breathe in the land's natural beauty from your favorite resort or golf fairway. Come experience Ka'anapali's own special brand of Hawaiian hospitality with world-class dining, relaxing resorts, water sports, and activities of every kind. For romantic, family, and great friend getaways, discover the options of Ka'anapali Beach Resort, where the world comes to play. Plan your getaway today. Visit Ka'anapaliResort.com. That's KAANAPALI Resort.com.
And we are back. Richard Nixon live here on CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com, broadcasting coast to coast and around the world. If you guys enjoyed this program, make sure to follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube as well, where you can watch past and previous versions of this high-quality broadcast. Like and subscribe. We appreciate it. And Richard, to wrap things up, so I know I talked about this a lot at the dinner table over these past couple weeks, and we should wrap up with this. So newly elected, I believe from Minnesota, Representative Omar. She had some remarks regarding AIPAC, which is a political action committee advocating for the state of Israel. And she was asked on Twitter, why does AIPAC, as a political action committee, have so much sway over politics in Washington? And she responded by saying, on Twitter, of course, quote, "It's all about the Benjamins." And this remark was interpreted by many as anti-Semitic imagery,
yes,
equating money with Jewish people.
Yes.
And so a lot of people, right and left, were calling for her condemnation in a formal way. And what Nancy Pelosi did, well, tell the audience what Nancy Pelosi said.
Well, basically what Nancy Pelosi did is she tried to excuse what was clearly anti-Semitic jargon, and tried to excuse Miss Omar by saying that, well, being that she's Somali, I believe,
yeah,
she probably has different experience in the use of words. Well, if that's the case, then we can all be excused. We all come from different sources, but yet we have to all be held to the same standard of use of the words that the dictionary dictates, and the rest of us, I think, accept in everyday discourse.
And one thing we don't like on this show is we don't like hypocrisy. Because Steve King, I believe he's from Iowa, representative from Iowa.
Yes.
He had some remarks that some people interpreted as anti-Semitic and support for white nationalism, and he was roundly condemned
Absolutely.
And stripped of all his committee assignments by his own party. It seems like there's a double standard here.
Exactly, and there's something about the Democrats, at least Nancy Pelosi, to excuse this. In fact, there was a type of censure, if you will, but it wasn't specific to Miss Omar. It was just in general platitudes of how none of us should be anti-this and anti-that. We should all be good boys and girls. It's not sufficient. And again, it's an application of the double standard. And it kind of irritates those of us who are Republican, because Republicans tend to, if you will, eat their own where Democrats don't.
Yeah. And it just, like you said, it seems like a double standard for all involved. It's like when you have kids and one kid does something wrong that you yell at all the kids.
Yes.
It just seems like,
Right.
and it, for solely political reasons, which I think is a bit much. And real fast, Richard, we're up against the end right here. But and our girl, we love her.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from the Bronx. She recently had an interesting quote where she said, quote unquote, "It is unethical to have children at this particular point in history because of climate change."
Yes, and, you know, I'm getting to the point where I think she's so cute that I have a hard time fighting her words.
Yeah.
But she does have a point in some things, and that is that if it's really true that global warming is a fact, regardless of whether man caused it or not, we should all be doing our best to counteract that if we can. But on the other hand, it seems utterly futile if China and India refuse to join the agreement.
Yeah.
I understand that they're polluting way more. I understand further that this country's done more to curtail pollution in the last 20 years than any country on earth. So I don't know what more we can do, and I don't want to see people put out of work.
Absolutely, that's the key right there. We want to protect the earth, but we also want to protect people's livelihoods and their health and happiness. So, Richard, thank you so much. Really appreciate
Thank you.
it. We'll be back next week more with the Legal Lounge. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Drop us a note. Richard Nixon at CRNTalk.com. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week, you guys. 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. All episodes available on YouTube as well. Take care.